Добрый день, рада приветствовать вас на нашей онлайн-трансляции. Сегодня у нас в гостях Юлиана Черникова, академический директор Language Link, единственный в Южном федеральном округе Delta Tutor и старший CELTA Tutor, обладатель диплома Delta с отличием.
Юлиана Черникова,
академический директор Language Link,
единственный в Южном федеральном округе Delta Tutor и старший CELTA Tutor.
Так, настроили. Да, Юлиана сегодня поделится с нами информацией по поводу, как преподавателям профессионально и непрерывно развиваться, и даст практические советы на этот счет. Юлиана, здравствуйте, благодарим, что пришли к нам. Вам слово.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Thank you very much for joining us at this busy hour, and I hope this short talk will be beneficial for both of us. So let's start from a very simple question. What is continuous professional development? So continuous professional development is an ongoing process of teachers assessing and re-examining their skills, beliefs, and practices. So it also involves the development of their personal skills, which are important in professional career. So many teachers ask me a question: how many hours of professional development do I need? Well, actually, if you like, it's a lifelong process of honing your professional skills, and it should be, I can't see you. So it should be planned, systematic, and actually it should lead to developing your professional competence, creativity, and innovation. So the overarching goal of continuous professional development is to provide high-quality teaching services. Another common question teachers usually ask me: why do I need continuous professional development? Well, the answer is obvious, because it can ensure your skills and knowledge are up to date. And professional development is especially important in our fast-moving world, because what we are teaching today might be out of date tomorrow. So in this short talk, I will try to give you some practical considerations and some techniques which will help you to feel empowered and motivated in the English teaching classroom, and while always developing professionally. Well, let's start from the basics. I think that being language teachers, we need to develop in two directions: language and methodology. Well, I interview a lot of potential teachers, CELTA, Delta, and young learner trainees, or candidates, if you like. And drawing on my experience, I came to the conclusion that we have two kinds of teachers. We have teachers who can speak excellent English, but have no ideas of the English teaching methodology. And on the other hand, we have teachers who have some ideas of the English teaching methodology, but I'm very sorry, their English leaves much to be desired. However, according to Cambridge policy of equal opportunities, we have to give everybody a chance. I know that some language schools do not accept teachers without any teaching experience. And those young, inexperienced teachers are a question: do take on inexperienced teachers? Where should I get this invaluable experience? Well, fair enough. If we don't take on young, inexperienced teachers, I think we miss out on the opportunity to have those teachers who are eager to develop professionally and could be beneficial to any language schools. So unfortunately, not many, but some very experienced English teachers are sometimes unwilling to develop, which is a shame, I think. So what can we do in this case? Here are some practical considerations. So first, as I've said, we need to develop in two directions. And the first one is language. So what can we do language-wise? First of all, I recommend all my teachers to prepare and take one of the Cambridge exams, either CAE or CPE, even FCE, if they are not confident enough. Why not? They can start from FCE and then move on. It will give them more confidence, actually. Well, in my schools, every week we have CAE or CPE preparation lessons. And it means that every week, one of the teachers is responsible for such lessons. It gives them a chance to be involved into preparation. And so it's not only the responsibility of the senior teacher of this or that branch, and it gives everybody a chance to be involved. So language is actually a living being, and it's always changing and developing. And of course, being language teachers, we need to be up to date. What we taught, for example, a couple of years ago, grammar-wise or vocab-wise, so can be out of date tomorrow. So we need to be in the know what's going on. And well, that's actually very rewarding to see teachers taking an exam and then getting the results. And the motivation is great here because whenever they get a lower grade, for example, grade C, you should have seen them being so frustrated that they immediately start preparing for the next exam, trying to get a higher level. What else? I do insist on reading books in the original, and my recommendation is, especially for the new inexperienced teachers, take a book in the original, look up every unknown word and learn them by heart. Believe me, it will boost your level of English tremendously. Don't forget to watch films, sitcoms, read blogs, chat with native speakers, which is easy actually nowadays. So next year, for example, I'm planning to organize a book or film club, which means that every month my teachers and me will read a book or watch a film, and then once a month we will get together and discuss them, not only in terms of the content, but also in terms of the language, because when you read in the original, you can see all those novelties which appear in the English language. Right, so the second direction, as I've said, is methodology. And here we can speak a lot actually about the development and improving our level of teaching. Sometimes walking along the school corridors, I can observe students copying some activities, some exercises from grammar books. Murphy, for example. Well, believe me, I have nothing against Murphy or some other grammarians. They are great. But the question is, do these activities lead to communication? Obviously not. A good developing teacher will also know how to make these activities, boring and dry activities, more creative and communicative, how to personalize them and to make them meaningful for the students. Being a CELTA, Young Learner and Delta tutor, I sometimes hear criticism of the past year's methodologies, starting from the, well, if you like, from the 19th century. For example, by the way, you should take a closer look at the methodology, and Delta Module 1 will help you a lot because you need to read a lot on English teaching methodology starting from the 19th century. For example, drills used to be criticized a lot as being mechanical, meaningless, repetitions, or parroting. But take, for example, a well-known find someone who activity. Isn't it a drill? It is. It's a very good communicative controlled practice drill. And it can be meaningful, and it is personalized, and actually most students enjoy this kind of activity. Being a professional teacher, being a developing teacher, you will know how to pick and choose all the best practices and techniques from all kinds of methodologies, and then you will know how to incorporate them to this or that level and to this or that context. I will give you another example. Translation used to be the Cinderella in the English teaching methodology for many years. But nowadays, if you read a brand new book, Translation or Own Language Activities by Philip Kerr, Cambridge University Press, you will find a lot of creative activities which can be used in a monolingual classroom, and actually they will help to understand the English language better, because your students will need to compare the two languages, so which will lead to more in-depth understanding of English. Even if you take the most popular communicative language teaching, which, by the way, I don't like the name of it, because whatever you do in the classroom must be communicative. Otherwise, why should you learn a language? Nowadays, in another brand new book, The Principled Communicative Approach, one of the authors is Charles Pugliese, whom I know personally, and I like him as being a very creative teacher. So in this book, you will find a lot of forgotten activities from different methodologies, which are adapted and actually made more creative, drills among them, by the way, and which can be used and returned into the modern classroom. So that's one way of developing, actually, when you have to rethink the so-called old methodologies and to pick and choose what can be used in your modern lessons. To me, a modern lesson is a patchwork lesson which comprises the best practices and techniques from different methodologies. Another opportunity is to develop professionally is to follow the teacher developmental series. Well, if you know, it's a very well-known series of books which focus on different aspects of the language English, or of the English language teaching. So whenever we have a new book on the market, we immediately organize a workshop with my teachers. And it's not only me who is responsible for presenting a new book. So actually we can either take turns, or we can split the material among the teachers so that everybody could participate. And you know, that's very rewarding to hear the next day my teacher saying, oh, you know, I tried this or that technique with my students and they liked it a lot. So they were really, really motivated. So that's rewarding, actually. The teacher's room is a very creative workshop in itself. Whenever, for example, I enter my teacher's room, I can see all the teachers being busy, looking for some interesting activities, but you should be beware of pitfalls here. Sometimes you find a very good activity and you're very happy, but for some reason it doesn't work in the lesson. And in this case, a developing teacher must be self-reflective, and you need to evaluate your lesson and the reasons why this activity didn't work, what was wrong. And the reasons actually can be either lack of interest, or the wrong level of this or that activity, even the student's mood, or the instructions you give, or the way you set up this or that activity. The teaching context is also very important. So I ran the CELTA in different countries, and believe me, what works in one country does not necessarily work in another. So you must choose activities very, very carefully. And it means, actually, you don't have to follow the trends. You need to be reflective and adaptive and flexible. And in the classroom, you need to teach your students, first of all, not what you planned. You need to be more flexible and cater for the students' needs. And by the way, your students are a very powerful motivational force for you to develop professionally. Another opportunity to develop professionally is, of course, to attend different conferences, webinars, to read blogs. Well, I personally could recommend IATEFL conference or IH Barcelona conference, which take place every year. And of course, you can go and listen to all the high professionals in the English teaching methodology. A fair question would be, what if I don't have an opportunity to go abroad? What if I'm busy? And you know, all of us are very busy, teaching more than 100 hours per week, sometimes more. And actually, that's a very good question. What can you do? I believe that in every school, there will be at least one person who can attend this or that conference. And besides, it's not always necessary to go abroad. You can attend local conferences. For example, in our city, 2 or 3 times a year, our book suppliers organize such kind of conferences inviting well-known methodologists. And after attending such conferences, you can ask this or that person to share the novelties in the English teaching methodology, so that everybody could be in the know. What we also do, I run annual, monthly workshops for my teachers, as well as for the secondary school teachers. And I try to make the program of these workshops different every year. And I have teachers coming back to me year after year, and they do not come only for a tick in their continuous professional development, I don't know, journal or whatever you call it. They really, really enjoy developing professionally and trying out new techniques in their classrooms. What if you can't attend such monthly workshops? Yes, most of us cannot afford that. Every year, in the last 2 weeks of August, we repeat the same 36-hour course intensively. So you're welcome to attend it if you like. Actually, the easiest way to develop professionally will be to observe each other. So actual peer observation is really important. And in most cases, you learn from each other more than from the professional teachers or from your tutors if you do CELTA or Delta course. Because all of us come with different experience, and sometimes we know the techniques, but we forget them. I, for example, sometimes get stuck in a rut, and in this case, I go and observe my colleagues. And you know what happens? I'm sitting in the classroom observing one of my teachers, and then I think, oh, I know this. Why didn't I do that? Oh, I quite forgot about that. So, and that's interesting. You get enthusiasm, and the atmosphere is great. And then after the lesson, when we discuss the lessons with the teachers, actually, that's surprising how much insightful they might be, how much more they observe than you do. And actually, it's a bilateral process. So we assess and evaluate together, and then we decide what could have been changed, what could have been done differently. The process is really, really beneficial, both for me as the director of studies, as a tutor, and for my colleagues as developing teachers. So the next actually important way to develop professionally is, of course, CELTA. CELTA is probably one of the most serious steps towards your professional career. Well, Unfortunately, practically all the trainees think that after CELTA, they immediately become experts in the English teaching methodology, which is another myth. What I usually tell them is that they need time to absorb all the information, to digest the knowledge we give them, and to understand why we insisted on changing their mindset. As I say at the end of the course, now you know the basics, it's time to explore the depths. CELTA in Russia is a little bit special because on my courses, I have mostly professional teachers coming on a CELTA course after many years of teaching. And my dear teachers, it's really, really difficult to do CELTA with many years of experience. It's easier for new inexperienced teachers because there is nothing to unlearn for them. Whereas for professional teachers, it takes some time to cope and to put up with the changes and to unlearn things they used to do for many years. Some CELTA tutors think that CELTA is the first basic course and we don't have to give a lot to our trainees. They just need to know the basics, which is actually true, but it doesn't work for me. For example, I'm not such kind of a tutor. I always try to give my trainees something more exciting, more creative, more innovative. And I always tell them not to be afraid to try out new techniques in the classroom. And it's actually rewarding to see their eyes sparkling with enthusiasm whenever they see something creative in my input sessions and whenever we discuss in feedback which of the activities they tried out worked and why. So what else? I actually, if some of the senior teachers or the directors of studies are listening to me now, I can recommend changing the academic program, probably not every year, but every other year or every 2 or 3 years. And well, actually, I'm a little bit cruel to my teachers here because I can imagine, or sometimes I overhear them sighing, oh my God, I've just got used to those books and she decided to change the program again. I'm really sorry, but we have to keep on, to keep moving, to keep up with the flow, because nowadays we have some novelties in the English teaching methodologies like 21st century skills, then how to develop thinking skills in with teachers. And of course, we need to try out the brand new course books, which give us such an opportunity. Oh, by the way, CLIL is also important. So this year, I'm changing the academic program and trying to incorporate 21st century skills, as I said, CLIL, thinking skills, social and emotional development in kids and teenagers. Well, we've been talking with my teachers recently about mixed ability classes. You know, every language school tries to test their students and then to put them into groups according to their level. But you can't guarantee you have a homogeneous class. Even if they are of the same level, they will be heterogeneous. They will be a mixed ability class because every learner differs in terms of their previous learning background, their aptitude to learn, their pace of learning, motivation, and so on. And actually, teachers usually think that having a mixed ability class is a great disadvantage, which is not true. I don't agree with that. A mixed ability class can have a lot of advantages because you deal with a greater pool of human resources. individual students bring in different experiences into the classroom. And of course, it doesn't let you be lazy. It requires, it demands from you to be a developing teacher, because you have to cater for all kinds of learners. So which means preparing for every lesson, you need to think very carefully which activity we can extend it, how we can scaffold weaker students, for example. So don't forget about that, and don't neglect such a wonderful opportunity to self-develop. Well, apart from CELTA, we have Delta, which is another turning point in your professional career. So Delta, of course, is a more theoretical course, and Delta will deconstruct you, but in a positive sense. Delta, if you like, will allow you to get rid of the CELTA straitjacket, because on a CELTA course, we usually follow a PPP lesson framework, sometimes test, teach, test framework. And it actually doesn't give you a lot of opportunities to think out of the box, to be more creative, to try and test some other lesson frameworks. Whereas on a Delta course, you will understand the theory behind teaching, and you will have a chance to experiment with different lesson frameworks, with different methodologies, and you will realize that what you actually used to do for many years was not effective enough, and you will know how to change it, which I think is a great opportunity. Don't forget about a young learner course. Unfortunately, well, a couple of years ago, Cambridge decided to discontinue CELTA young learner extension, and I didn't want to miss such an opportunity. I designed our own Teaching Young Learners and Teenagers course, which actually turned out to be quite popular. Well, I did it because when new teachers, when I interview new teachers, and when I ask them about the methodology of how to teach young learners and teenagers, in most cases, they have no idea how to do it, because in our universities, in our colleges, they don't pay due attention to young learner methodology. So I think this course is really, really necessary if you want to develop professionally, and if you want to be able to teach all kinds of levels, all kinds of age groups. Well, the question is, do I force my teachers to develop professionally? No, I encourage them. You know, some years ago, I used to have such a practice. Every month, at the end of the month, all my teachers filled in a report, what they did in that month, and they wrote their action plan for the following months. It didn't work, because it's as if I forced them to do this or that, to read this or that book, to attend this or that conference. And you know, if you're not willing to do something, if somebody forces you, it doesn't bring any results. So I decided not to do that anymore. And now I just encourage them. I infuse them with enthusiasm. I think that being a good role model, creating the right conditions, is the only way for the teacher to develop professionally. Well, thank you very much. That's what I was going to talk about. Do we have any questions?
Да, Юлиана, спасибо большое. У нас есть несколько вопросов на канале. Если позволите, я вам их задам. The first question. I usually write down all unknown words from books and TV shows. Do you have any recommendations how to practice these vocabulary units to memorize them better?
Yeah, that's a very good question. By the way, I have weekly lessons with secondary school teachers and their language classes, in which I try to incorporate the methodology as well. And for example, last Saturday, they asked me the same question. When I tried to revise the new vocab, they told me, well, we don't use these words. Of course, we can't remember them. Well, and what I told them is, if you keep reading books, if you keep watching films, you will encounter the same words and phrases all the time, and then they become memorable. And if you try to, why not? Even if you teach in a secondary school, why not give your students a chance to know modern English expressions? So I think that teaching and revising, and by the way, teaching is the best way of learning. So if you teach somebody new words and expressions, and if you revise them, there is a rule, by the way, you need to encounter or revise new words in 7 different activities, and then they become memorable. So 7 is a magic word. Keep watching films, so all the expressions are repeated. That's my recommendation.
Thank you, Yuliana. The next question is, what's the difference between Deep TESOL diploma, and Delta? Which one do you recommend taking?
There is a difference. Deep TESOL actually was before Delta. And it was a very demanding course, which was longer than Delta, and they had to write more assignments. After Deep TESOL, there was Delta, and Delta in the traditional form. Delta Module 1, Module 2, and Module 3, and you can because it's a practical module, and during which tutors usually prepare you for Module 1 and Module 3. Even if they don't prepare, they give you some practical considerations, some tips how to approach those 2 modules. Nowadays, there is no Deep TESOL. There is a TEFL course similar to CELTA, and there is also Masters, which is close to Delta, but on a Delta course, we have practice. That is why sometimes after Delta, when trainees decide to move on and develop their career, they apply to be CELTA tutors. But if they don't have Delta, if they have, for example, only TEFL or Masters, Cambridge does not approve of it because it doesn't have enough practical hours of teaching. I think that answered your question. Well, I can see some other questions here about IH Barcelona conferences. It's an annual event, and it takes place in IH Barcelona. It's not an online event. It's usually it takes 2 or 3 days. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Прошу прощения, у нас проблемы некоторые со связью. Надеюсь, что сейчас связь восстановится, и мы продолжим отвечать на вопросы. А в случае, если что-то пойдет не так, Юлиана обязательно ответит на все ваши вопросы в комментариях. Юлиана?
Yes, okay. I can read some other questions here. Okay. Yeah. Yes, there is a question about CAM or CAM course. Yes, I would definitely recommend it as a preparation course. It's a really, really good course and it's worth taking. Well, another question is, if a person is not a qualified teacher and doesn't know anything about it at all, do CELTA. Yes, they can. And initially, CELTA was designed for those people who have nothing to do with teaching, but would like to change their career and would like to become teachers. And as I've said, being non-teachers is even easier for candidates on a CELTA course because there is nothing to unlearn. They just learn something. All right. That's another interesting question is, many school owners do not see any direct relationship between teachers' continuous development and school's profit. What tips would you give or how to convince school owners to invest into professional development of the teachers' team? Well, I actually, as for me, I see the direct link between the teachers' continuous development and the school's profit. The more you develop your teachers professionally, the more you invest in their development, the more quality lessons you will get, the more students will get, and sure, the more profit will get. So there is a direct link, believe me. All right, and there is also a question about self-assessment and how you can assess the results of your continuous development. Well, here, what I would recommend is you can actually have a diary where you can enter or journal where you can enter all your professional development achievements. And at the end of the academic year, it's always good to sit face-to-face or to have individual tutorials with your teachers and to discuss what was done during the year and what can be done to improve any aspects of their teaching, either language-wise or methodology-wise. And actually, after such tutorials, teachers feel more, I don't know, more that they can be beneficial for the school, and you as either a school owner or the director of studies can see how to stimulate, how to motivate your teachers who were very active. I usually stimulate them raising their salary or giving them some other benefits. And believe me, it works a lot. And actually, drawing on my experience, money is not the only stimulus in this case. That's only for the teachers. Of course, everybody needs money and everybody wants to be motivated by raising the salary and so on. But if your teachers are really enthusiastic about developing professionally, they will not just tick the boxes in their professional development diary or journal. They will really, really want to change and grow. Do we have any other questions? No. Okay, we have no questions.
Thank you, Yuliana. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So if we do still have, if we still do have questions, I will answer them in commentaries, all right?
Yeah, sure. Юлиана, спасибо вам за столь полезную информацию. Спасибо, что пришли сегодня к нам. Дорогие зрители, приносим извинения за технические неполадки. Надеюсь, что вы все слышали и воспринимали информацию хорошо. Подписывайтесь на наш канал, чтобы не пропускать наши следующие полезные трансляции. А еще в описании под этим видео есть ссылка, по которой вы можете стать преподавателем в Skyeng и работать в удобное для вас время и там, где пожелаете. Желаю всем успехов, до новых встреч. Юлиана, спасибо огромное вам.
Thank you very much. And just a final word, I would also recommend celtadelta.ru site where you can follow the timetable of our CELTA, Delta, and Young Learner courses. All right? Thank you very much. Goodbye.
See you.